Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another spectacular guest. Super excited when I saw his information come across my email. I was like, man, this is going to be a fun conversation. I have no idea where it's going to go or how it's going to end, but I know that when I find people who are heart-centered and really working on helping the next generation, then I want to talk to them. I want to find out what makes them tick, because I have a similar vision and mission. How do we help the next generation be more powerful, stronger, and more centered than we were in our generation? So how do we help them learn from that? A few things that about Avery Mason. He's out in LA and he's a comedian, an actor, retired Power Ranger. That's cool. Yeah. But go for it, Avery. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are, and what drove you. What was your early childhood like? Why are you so passionate about what you are today?
Well, cool. Let's start off. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, actually. I want to be in LA one day, but I'm too addicted to New York, living in East New York, you know what I mean? In the East Coast. But how did I get where I'm at today? That's a great question. I'm the son of immigrants. My mother and my father my mother's from Trinidad and my dad's from Grenada. And they came here in the 80s, and I was born here in Brooklyn, New York. We were born in the drug era, so it was a rough time, but made it out. I'm trying to figure out, how do I get to where I'm at now? I don't want to bore your listeners. It's not a long story, but it's kind of detailed, little nuanced. So just so you want me to start like?
Yeah, we want to know, like, how did you end up where you are with the things that you've done? What guided your path there? Because in our experience, there's a few pivotal moments where big decisions are made and there's a fork in the road and you can choose one way or the other. And sometimes over time lead to somewhere. So what were some of those big pivotal moments in your life? And let's go from the very beginning. I know some of my first pivotal moments were when I was 5 and 6 years old, and then 12 years old. They were early childhood that I had that identity seeded into me.
Well, I want to say the first one that I can distinctly remember was when I was in the 4th grade. I remember that, I was doing really good in school, and they had a parent-teacher conference, and my teacher was talking to my mother, and she asked my mother, she said, she was telling my mother, Avery's so polite, he's so well spoken, he's so well behaved in class, he's always saying please and stuff. And then the teacher asked my mother, do you think he's a little, is he little, is he gay? And my mother's looking at the teacher like, you think he's gay because he says, please, thank you, and he's polite? And that was my first indication that some people, when you speak a certain way, people look at you a certain way. And I remember saying to myself, am I okay sounding this way, or should I switch how I talk to make people think of me a different way? And honestly, what I decided was, I'm happy with how I sound. My mother raised me a certain way. She raised me to talk a certain way, speak a certain way with education. And that's how I continue to talk. And it's for years, a lot of people would tell me, man, you don't sound like how you look. And I'd always press them like, what do you mean? Tell me more. I always do it. I don't care. I like making people uncomfortable, so people would say things like that to me. Yeah, you don't sound how you look. How do I look? How do I sound? What do you mean? Well, you know. So that was like That was number one. That was the first time that you make a decision like, are you comfortable with who you are? And this was this was the fourth grade. And I was like, I don't care. I like how I talk. I don't have a problem with it. Next time I can remember having like a fork in the road to cross was, I want to say maybe in high school. Junior high school was an awkward time. I'm sure it was for you, for me. Everybody's going through their growing phases, but high school was the next time where I had another path to cross, and it was, doing drugs. I had some friends who were smoking weed, which at the time was illegal. And I remember, they wanted to cut class and go smoke, and I had never smoked weed. I really didn't know much about it, but I remember it was always this one crew of kids, like we called them the stoners, obviously. So all they did was during like lunch period, they would go behind the fence. Cause I went to John Dewey High School, and there's train tracks. There's a train depot behind the school, so it's separated by a fence. So there's a little space between where the school fence ends. You walk through there, and then there's a train fence, and there's like a little area where you could hang out, and that's where the stoners would go and have their meetings, shall we say. So I remember a friend had invited me to go, and I was just curious, so I went just to see what was going on, what it was about. And I remember not really wanting to do, I just wanted to see what they were doing, but I not really want to participate. And one of the other kids could tell that I really wasn't into it at all, because every time they would pass the stuff around, they'd like come to me, I'd pass it to somebody else. And he's like, you know what? Avery, why don't you go ahead, man? We'll catch up with you in the next period. And one of the other kids was like, no, man, I want to see him bug out. And the other kid was like, nah, man, like he was just like, he could tell. He was like, nah, he's not with it. So, and that was to me, that was a really good decision, to walk away from that kind of stuff at that time, at that age. And, I don't know what that kind of thing would have an effect on me at that point, but I did walk away from that. And those kids never really hung out with me after that, which it was probably for the best, because they all ended up getting left behind. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but in my opinion, that was crossroads moment in high school. Man, there's a lot of stuff. Now it's coming back. Now I'm thinking about it, there are a lot of decisions that I made. So let's get to after high school is college. First time that, I'm on my own. I'm not there with my family and, have some independence. Let's talk about really, I had to learn to accept myself. I had some issues with self-esteem. I know a lot of people would find this weird, or your listeners would find this weird to hear, but I used to be a very shy person. And I wouldn't do stuff like this. I wouldn't be talking to you. I've never met you before, but the old me I wouldn't be doing this on camera, being recorded. Like, it wasn't my thing. And, I don't know. I got to college and I wasn't confident. People were making fun of me, how I walked, how I look, how I talk, how I act. It was a lot of things. And I tried to fit a mold. So I'm not sure how old you are, Sam, but there was a time in the late 90s and the early 2000s where, Puff Daddy was being called the shiny suit man, and like he would wear all these, these ski goggles and like stuff, like he was going skiing, but he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to make myself look like that. I don't have any pictures, so don't ask, but it was a different time. All right. People were walking around wearing puffy coats that weren't skiing. It was a different time, folks. Okay. Don't judge me. But I tried to make myself look like that. Like I'm in college to get an education and get my degree, and I'm walking around every day dressed like I'm in a music video, which, it costs a lot of money. And people were confused. 8:00 in the morning, I'm coming out looking like Puff Daddy. Would you just come from the club? No, man, I just came from a dorm room. No. And it just, I thought I was cool, but it's not sustainable, man. And I wasn't happy. And so, what ended up happening was I ended up, just kind of having like like a heart to heart with myself. Like, is this who I really want to be? You know, is this me? And I realized I wasn't being myself. So I really had to just be comfortable being myself and accept it. And it's like, this is who I am. If you don't like it, you know, you have to tell people sometimes, this is who I am. If people don't like it, you don't have to hang out with me. And once I started doing that more often, instead of trying to fit into a mold of what people thought I should be, then I started becoming more comfortable, honestly, with myself and being more honest with myself. Because I have people tell me all the time, going back to what happened in the 4th grade, man, you don't sound how you look. Man, you talk a certain way. You don't, you know, you sound like this, you sound like that. And it was just like one of those things, this is how I talk, man. Oh man, why do you sound like that? Because I don't know, I got education. You know, when I was growing up, Sam, my mother had this thing about, like, you know, she wanted us to sound educated because we have education. So, you know, you can only talk a certain way in my house. Otherwise, my mother wasn't a fan of using slang. If we use slang in the house, we would get in trouble. So it was one of those households where, you know, you have education, use it. So, and, you know, people don't understand that. So in college is when I really became comfortable with who I am as a person and really settled into who I was. And that was also where I kind of had my like coming out party in terms of me being fully me. Like I said, I was shy up until they had this talent show in my college, University of Albany. Shout out to the Great Danes. They had a talent show and I participated in the talent show and I did a rap. And I don't know what it was about me doing that rap, but once I did that rap, it was like the cat was out of the bag, the personality was out of the can, and everything just kind of started from there. I started DJing, I started hosting a weekly radio show. And on that radio show is kind of where I developed my own persona, but more aspects of my personality. Like I do stand-up comedy as well. And that kind of got started during the radio show. So I do my 4 years at University of Albany. Hope you guys are still with me. I hope it's not boring yet.
A page full of notes, brother. I'm excited to dive into this.
Yeah, we're getting there. So I do my time at UA. I graduate. I decided to stay in Albany and work and live there. And I was miserable. I was working at Best Buy, which at the time is a decent, you know, it was when Circuit City around. It's like, you know, if you're a wrestling fan, you have the Monday Night Wars with WCW versus WWE. Well, it was like that, except with electronics. It was Circuit City versus Best Buy. So, you know, and they were wearing blue. Best Buy was blue and Circuit City was red, all that kind of stuff. So it was a hot time. People were battling. They were battling with prices and deals. And I worked there for like 3 years and I did a bunch of different jobs when I was living in Albany. One I had for 2 days. I worked at Pizzeria Uno for 2 days and I quit. And it was a terrible job. They hire you as a dishwasher, dude. I'm thinking I'm just going to wash dishes. Everybody else got to go home. And the guy's like, yeah, I finished my dishes. He's like, all right, cool, grab that mop, start scrubbing the floor. I'm like, scrubbing the floor? I thought I was hired as a dishwasher. See, this is what I'll tell you. When you're a dishwasher, you're also the garbage man. You're the guy who fixes, like, when the drinks run out. And you're the guy who scrubs the floor and stuff when everybody goes. I didn't know any of this. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm just washing dishes. Now I'm scrubbing the floor. I did it for 2 days and I was like, never again. I'm done. This ain't for me. Coming home smelling like, you know, deep dish. It wasn't, you know, I don't like it. So then I found Best Buy and I was there because, you know, I still be around TVs and just kind of hang out and do customer service, whatever. So I did that for 3 years. Ended up moving back to Brooklyn because I just wasn't happy. And when I was in Brooklyn working Best Buy, it's worse. Where are you from, Sam?
I'm from Utah, but now live in Arizona.
Okay, dude. So let me tell you this. Have you ever been to New York City?
Yeah.
You have, okay. You can tell it's a different energy here in the city, right? Working Best Buy in Albany, New York is different than working Best Buy in Brooklyn, New York, okay? The people in Albany are nice. The people in Brooklyn tear you apart. This is like Thunderdome here, man. 2 men enter, 1 man leave, but savage. So I came down here. I only managed to do Best Buy for 1 year before I was like, never again. Send me somewhere else. Don't send me to Best Buy. I think people would rather go to jail than go work at Best Buy at this point, at least in New York City. That's how bad it was. So I quit that job and then I started working for another company called Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I don't know, are you familiar?
Yeah.
A lot of your listeners, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, great company. It was, for me at the time, it was a great company. I was doing rental, but I'll be honest with you, I was feeling unfulfilled. I did the first 2.5 years working in rental. And then I wasn't motivated. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who get that job, become a management trainee and then move up in the company. They want to go to the airport. They want to run their own branch. I had no such aspirations. And I remember my area manager at the time was like, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And he was like, you just got the job for the health insurance? And I was like, yeah, in my 20s at the time, I'm like, I didn't care about health insurance. I'm like, I don't know, but this job to me wasn't cool. So he was like, all right, here's what we'll do. I'll get you an interview at the corporate level. You'll do, claims, insurance claims for people who get into accidents with the cars. And I was like, all right, that sounds like fun. I mean, I don't know if you've ever done insurance claims, or any of your listeners ever done, but one of the worst jobs you can have is being an insurance claims person because everybody calls you and everybody thinks they're right and everybody's like, cut the check for my car. But I did it. It was 7 years. Dude, I thought I would like it. The first year, 2 years, I liked it. After that, I was completely miserable. They used to have me deal with all the difficult claimants because people would come up there to get checks and they'd be angry on the phone and they would see me and then they immediately calmed down. So I was like the bouncer for the claims office. So you can't tell by looking at this camera, but I'm 6'4" and I'm about 260 pounds. Okay. So your attitude changes when you see a guy like me at the door. You're like, hey man, I'm here to get the check for my Ford Vespa. Hey, can I please have the check for my Ford Vespa? Thank you so much, Mr. Mason. It's a pleasure coming in here. And it was like that, so I did about 7 years of that. I was not happy there either because sometimes in your life, when you feel like you're meant for more, you're destined for more, you can feel it. You feel something inside of you where you're like, yo, I'm not supposed to be here doing this, man. Like I did a good job. I did the best job I could was because, any job I get, I try to do the best I can, but I could feel like I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And so in 2013, now, so here's another crossroad. You want to talk about crossroads? March of 2013, I'd had enough of the job. I did not like my manager. And if he sees this, it's okay. He's a nice guy. I didn't like him as my manager. I'm sorry. He was a decent guy outside of work, but at work, it was not it. We were two different people. And I had enough and I couldn't take it anymore. It was a lousy commute to work. If you're from New York or if you've been stuck in traffic for more than 45 minutes, you know what I'm talking about. And I got to the point where I had to decide, am I going to stay here? And I did a little list. I was like, let me look around at all the people who have a position higher than me at this job and let's see how happy they are with their job. So I looked at all the supervisors, the management. I looked at them and none of them looked happy, man. Like they all looked miserable. And I said to myself, why would I want to stay at a job where none of the people look happy? They all look miserable. They don't look happy to be here. They're like just here for a check. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. And I remember at the beginning of March writing my 2-week notice and holding on to it till the end of March. Why the end of March? Because we get paid 3 times in March. So I was like, I wanted to get all 3 checks. Then give him my 2-week notice. So I get all 3 checks in March. And that's what I did, man. Gave him my notice and he was kind of like surprised that I was quitting, but I'm like, I'm sure you can see this coming. No, this is a surprise to me. I'm like, I haven't had a raise in like 3 years. How does this surprise you? You should be surprised I didn't quit sooner. You don't get a raise from a job for 3 years. You're surprised I'm leaving now? I'm surprised he stuck around for 3 years. He didn't get a raise. Man, this is crazy. Yeah, but I quit. And I honestly, dude, I'd be lying to you if I said I had a plan. I didn't. I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore. I went to this place called Connecticut School of Broadcasting and try to refine my radio skills, which it's like a technical school. If you want to think about it, it's like they teach you how to do all the stuff that those guys on your favorite radio stations do, like, Big Boy or Wendy Williams or you name it, Elvis Duran. If you listen to Clear Channel, they teach you how to like edit, and everything involved the radio stuff. They teach you the business side of it. So I did that thinking that I was going to be on the radio, and it just didn't work out. I started working at a station, and, they put me on the street team, which I was like, maybe if I was like 17, I'd be okay with that. But, I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I don't want to do a street team. I mean, it was fun while it was there, but this ain't it. So during that time, I had a friend of mine. I started doing stand-up comedy. I'd started doing stand-up comedy, and I was like, still kind of figuring myself out, finding my way, and I'm trying to make money. And so this is where we get into current day. Shout out to her. Her name is Jessica Stern. Okay. Now, mind you, I have actors in my family, but I never took it seriously. Now I'm talking to my friend Jessica. She's a comedian. I'm telling her, I need to make some extra money. Nothing's really going on around here, and my savings kind of going down. She says, well, why don't you try background acting? I said, what background acting? What do you mean? She's like, oh, look, all these TV shows are just people who walk behind the camera. You don't really have to do anything. And, you get paid like $100 or whatever. And she was like, yo, you get a free lunch and some food. And I said, lunch and food? I didn't even mention the money. I was like, lunch and food? I'm there. Like, how do I sign up? You give me a free sandwich and some candies. You got me for 8 hours at least. You keep feeding me. So I went and I signed up with Central Casting, and I was doing background while I was doing stand-up. And I don't know, man, when I got on set, something happened. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was almost like something felt right. So most people who don't know, okay, you do a background acting. I wasn't in a union at the time, so you're not getting a ton of money, but you're on set for a lot of hours. At the time, they were giving people $100, and you had to work 10 hours to get $100. Yeah, I know that's crazy, right? Y'all should see Sam's eyes right now. He's like, wait, what? How much? Yes, $100 for 10 hours. $10. Wait, I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure it's $10 an hour, which is not a lot of money to be on someone's set. No benefits, nothing. But for me, it wasn't about the money. I was just enjoying the experience. I would get on these sets, and we'd be there for hours doing absolutely nothing. And I would just sit and I would ask people questions. What's your job? What do you do? Oh, okay. So they tell you can't talk to the actors. So what I did was I would talk to all the people behind the scenes, the cameraman, the lighting guys, the grips, the people who do the set design, the wardrobe people. And they would you ask them questions, they would answer. So I would just be, every time I'm on set, I'm just asking people questions, talking to the second AD, assistant director, questions. Just like, hey man, how does this work? And why are you this? And you get friendly with people because you see the same people over and over when you're acting. So a lot of people got to know me. They knew I was on time, knew I was professional, knew I was friendly. And you just start talking to people, and I really started liking it. And then after about, I want to say 2 years doing it, I came to a point where I was like, all right, am I going to be, is this going to be career background actor? Or are we going to do something with this? Came to another crossroads where I was like, all right, I got to start taking this seriously if I want to move up. So I started taking acting classes. I had started investing in myself. From there, I started doing some independent movies. I did some student films, which is a great way to start. If you're looking to get into acting, start doing student films and independent projects. And then I was doing background. I set a goal for myself, which also helps you if you're trying to do something. Set a goal. I set a goal for myself to try to do background on every episodic TV show that takes place here in New York City. So, Law and Order, all the way down. Every show you can think of. Orange is the New Black at the time. All these shows are filming here, and I tried to get background on every single one of the shows. Luke Cage. If you look at some episodes of Luke Cage, you'll see me. If you look at some episodes of Law and Order, with your slow button, you'll catch me just kind of like, if you're just crossing the street. And that's how I got myself motivated. I was like, well, I did this show, cross that off list. Did this show, cross that off list. It didn't always go well because sometimes, because of my height and size, I didn't get to do the background. They told me, there's this one movie with Dakota Johnson. I can't remember the name of it, but They filmed it here in New York City. I got on the background and they put me in the scene. I was excited because she was in the scene too. And I was just walking by, and then they didn't tell me why, but they just like, the tall guy, can you take him out? And then when I got in the holding area, the PA told me, the production assistant said, yeah, they took you out because you were too big. It was kind of distracting. So I spent about 12 hours just kind of sitting in the room, sleeping in my car, because they paid me to use my car as well. So I just slept in the car for like 12 hours and got paid to the movie. They never used me again. They never even came looking for me, which is why I will tell you, if you're trying to get on background, get on it, because sometimes you just get paid to just be there. So that happened, and I kept doing background. And there was one show that I couldn't get on that I kept trying to get on, which was this TV show called Power. Power is a show that was executive produced by 50 Cent, and the creator, her name was Courtney Kemp Agbo. Okay. And, so I kept applying. I couldn't get on. I was like, man, why can't I get on the show? It's so popular. I just want to get on and do background and I'll be good. An opportunity came from Casting Networks where they were looking for a featured person on the show. They didn't go into too many details. They're looking for a featured person, to be a valet. So they're looking for somebody my height and size. So I said, oh, cool. I'll put in for it. And I got it. And it was for Power. So I get on set. I don't know anybody. I'm doing a scene. It goes great. And I'm just like, oh, great. I got on the show. This went well. That's my bucket list. And now back to acting school. Let's do something else. They called me back to come do more scenes. I said, really? And then now this time I knew it was something special, because usually if you book work through Casting Networks, they'll call you themselves, Casting Networks. But when the producers of the show call you directly, I knew something, something was different. So every time they wanted to use me after that, they just called me directly, say, hey, are you available? Oh, yeah. All right, come on. So after 2 seasons of this, they offered me an audition for a new part they came up with. That part ended up being the character I played on the first show I ever did was called BG, which stood for Black Grimace, which that was the part that I got. And that lasted till the end of the show, which was 6 seasons, until, spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear this, fast forward. I'll give you I'll wait. Let's give them a chance to hit fast forward just so they don't hear this part. You want to jump ahead about 5-10 seconds starting now. Boom. So I'm trying to be helpful, Sam,
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's funny.
Season 6, I get killed off. So my run as a character went from season 3 to season 6. Welcome back if you fast forwarded. Don't rewind because you don't want to hear what happened. But that's what happened, dude. And that's kind of how my acting career started at that moment. And then everything else from there led me to where I'm at now. And now I have a daughter, I have a son. It's a wild ride. I just kind of gave you kind of like, I feel like a shortened version of everything and kind of try to hit some key points. So I hope I covered enough.
So much. That is awesome. So I have a few funny stories of similar crossroads of different experiences. They happen at different ages for me throughout my life. So some of your crossroads, let's start with the one that happened when you were younger and in school. We both had this conversation for different reasons about you got this conversation because you were being polite. I don't know if I was ever going to get a conversation about being gay or being polite. That just wasn't my nature. I don't even know that it is my nature now, that's like something to be like, oh yeah, he's a really nice, considerate person. That's not me generally. But pretty much my whole entire childhood, I loved the idea of color, and as much color. I mean, even right now I'm wearing this bright green shirt. As much color as I could get on my body, I would. I usually would go to Costco. They have the KY or KP or whatever socks, and colorful socks. I'd mismatch them. So I would wear bright colored mismatched socks, bright colors on my clothes. Almost throughout my entire childhood, all of my best friends were all female. I almost never had any real male friends, maybe 1 or 2 at a time, but all female friends. And finally, when I was, I don't know, somewhere around, I don't actually know, I should go look in my journals, but somewhere between the ages of I believe 18 and 23. We'll just put it in that age group because I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but went home to visit my house up in Idaho, and my parents called me upstairs and they're like, "Hey, are you gay? It's okay if you're gay." Like, what in the world? Why do you think I'm gay? Well, all your friends are girls. You're really friendly. You have lots of flamboyant colors. You really take a lot of time to put into like how you look, and that's always been something you love to do. Shopping, you're like obsessed with shopping, which is true. I am. Like, I love clothes shopping. Like, list out all this stuff. I was like, that's fascinating. I've never once thought that I was gay.
Nelson's like, well, he does like a deal, so maybe, I don't know. He's at Bloomingdale's a lot.
I've never once thought that. But what's interesting is at that point in time, I definitely made some different decisions. I was like, okay, I'm going to stop mismatching my socks. If this is like a dead giveaway that I'm gay, I'm not gay. I'm looking for an awesome woman that I'm attracted to, like, so that it's just interesting. The question, and again, a lot of this podcast is going back to the questions, the question of, hey, should I care about what other people think? That question is so powerful. And in a lot of areas of my life, I had made that decision earlier. So my earlier experiences, you're talking about your junior high school time, I was homeschooled. So I had got ridiculed a lot growing up as being homeschooled and just being somebody who was already a little weird compared to the other people that I was around. And with that weirdness just came a lot of ridicule. So we would go, I still played high school sports still, just not attended the school for education. Yeah. And so a lot of the kids there, they would play this, like the Are You Nervous game, right? Where they run their hand up your leg, and if you let them go too far, then they end up grabbing you, and that's its own thing that could be whatever. Small town Idaho, guys. I know.
We had games like that here. We had a game here, which, I'm sorry, disclaimer, I didn't come up with the name for this one. We played it in Brooklyn. It was called Suicide, all right? And you had they had like one of these blue rubber balls. Mm-hmm. You would throw it at the wall, it would bounce. If you dropped it, you had to run and touch the wall before someone else got the ball. They could throw it at you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Played that game too.
You did? Okay, so what did you call it?
I don't remember what we called it. We played it with a tennis ball though, and yeah, it hurt like heck.
The tennis ball was cement. It was like cement. But if you flinched, then you had to stand at the wall, and they could throw it at you. The 90s were a wild time, people. Okay, we did dangerous things. Okay,
we're gonna get flagged for this, but like the idea, we used to play Smear the Queer, and it's like you can't play that now. That's just like such a
no.
Say it. Anyways, but just funny things. So people would always come up to me and be like, "Hey, you're gay," or "I think you're gay," or whatever. People would tell me that all the time as a childhood, but back then, gay didn't necessarily mean homosexual necessarily. I mean, I guess it always did, but it meant more just like you're weird, you're off, literally what the definition of queer is. You're strange. We don't know you. You know, whatever. It was a thing. But what's fascinating about it is at that stage in life, younger, I had developed a lot of thick skin. And so my response to anytime somebody would say something about me, I was just like, sure, yeah, what of it? Like, who cares what you think? And I think so many people, they get stuck in this cycle of caring what other people think, and they never learn the lesson of not caring what other people think. And that could be some of the biggest down trajectories in people's life is when they're stuck living their life on somebody else's terms. So I think it's awesome that you had at 4th grade decided, hey, I'm just not going to care what people think.
It's tiring because you're trying to please everybody else and you got to please yourself. And honestly, truthfully, the kids could tease me all they want. The only person that I was really afraid of was my mother. I grew up in a single parent household. My dad wasn't around past the age of like 7 or 8. So it was my mom. I'm more afraid of her than these kids who are teasing me. So if my mother's telling me, hey, you need to talk like this, what the other kids thought didn't matter. Like, they would tell me, say, oh, you talk like you're white. And I'd be like, what does a white person talk like? I mean, does he speak English? Like, were some from planet called White People Planet, where they speak a different, I don't understand what that meant, what they were like alluding to, but as this is how I talk, this how it is, and I can't change how I talk. I can't change how I speak. So I was just like, I just stopped caring. I'm like, well, I'm good. I'm good.
We need more of that in our society. We need more children to be scared more about what their mentors and I say scared. I don't know that scared as far as fear, but have a healthy dose of admiration, respect. Hey, I actually want to shine good light on you. Now, maybe I would say for me and maybe for you, it sounds like there is fear involved in that. Well, when you're a child, maybe we all need some more healthy dose of fear, of disappointment, fear of repercussions above and beyond what the peers are thinking. Because I think that's such a big, big thing. And then the second thing there in junior high, when you said that guy, he stood up for you and he's like, hey, this just isn't for you. And I think there's very few moments in all of our lives where that happens, where you have somebody else recognize, hey, this just isn't your scene. I'm still going to keep playing in the scene because I like it, but I understand that for you, this just isn't your scene. You need to get out of here because I know this isn't going where you want to end up. And even though they don't get out with you, they're kind enough to say, you know what, this is something that you probably should just discontinue and stop participating in it. And those are defining moments. And the question is, when are those happening for you? And then no matter how that happens, this is the other thing you brought up that I just thought was awesome, is in college, you have this lack of self-esteem. And then are you willing to let other people have their thoughts about you or try and fit in their mold? And sometimes you're just discovering new aspects of your life, right? It's hard defining who you're going to be, and learning to define who you are inside sometimes takes discovery, sometimes takes trying out new roles. And I wrote down, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hitch. I can't imagine you haven't, but it's one of the best movies ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the lines in there, as he's teaching Albert Brenneman, how to dance and whatever, and I think this line actually in the show was used from a negative connotation, but I think the principle is so powerful, and that is the line that, hey, who you are right now is a fluid concept. Because the guy's sitting there saying, well, I don't want to dance like that, or I don't want to wear these clothes. That just doesn't feel like me. And he's like, look, you are a fluid concept right now. And I think that too many people, they forget that they are a fluid concept. And so once they have one experience and they feel like they were pigeonholed into this certain experience, then they accept that as the identity of who they are in an entirety, rather than saying, hey, who I am is a fluid concept. I might have been a complete jerk last week or yesterday or forever ago. That doesn't have to continue to be me. I may have been attracted to that individual 6 years ago. That doesn't have to continue to be me. And I used to really enjoy this type of music. That doesn't have to continue to be me. I used to spend too much time watching TV. That doesn't have to continue to be me. I used to have these habits. That doesn't have to continue to be me. The idea that we are all fluid concepts actually is a really powerful idea. And being okay with that can be hard, but also can be some of the most liberating things that happen. And in comedy, I'm curious how that concept applied to comedy, because I think I'm pretty funny. I do a lot of public speaking. I love it. And the people that I study the most are comics, of how they set up their whole entire set from beginning to end, make jokes, tie in. There's different types of comics. There's the super crowd interactive comics that are just really up there to riff off of people and whatever. And then there's people who are really calculated and they create a set and they're funny the entire time, and they aren't taking the expense of anybody in the crowd. They aren't really attacking anybody in the crowd. And I think there's just different types of comics. It's not a good or bad thing. But how has understanding the fluidness of who you are, your identity, or the multifacets of your identity, how is that applied into your comedic ability?
That's a great question. It's almost like figuring out who you are once again and how to communicate that to people. So just kind of piggyback off of what you said, I'll use my own example of, if you're a hip hop fan, you know who Rakim and Eric B are. And in one of his songs, Rakim said, "It ain't where you're from, it's where you're at." So it's kind of, with comedy, it's kind of fluid, like what you were saying with who you are as a person. It's all fluid. So where you're from, that's not where you're going to end up at. And where you're at now is not necessarily where you're going to be in 2-3 years. So when it comes to comedy, it's the same thing. Usually most people, when they do comedy, they start off with, I I don't want to use the term hack, but hack jokes. And what I mean by that are jokes that anybody could do. You hear them at the cooler, you know, you hear them in the parking garage, little thing. You can do it in front of people, but you can't go on stage in front of 100 people and tell these jokes because no one will laugh. So figuring out who you are as a comedian is helpful because then you can start telling more personal jokes which make you stand out from the pack, which is what people like Tom Segura have mastered, Jim Gaffigan have mastered, Chris Rock has mastered, even Dave Chappelle has mastered. Like when you hear Chappelle talk, you understand his cadence and his personality. And some of the best comics have figured out how to get their personality. You may have never met Dave Chappelle once, but he's figured out how to get his personality across to you in 5 minutes or less. So that way, when he's doing the rest of his set, you're laughing at his jokes because you understand who he is as a person. And that's where I'm at in terms of my comedy journey right now, is I'm still, I've been doing it now for about 10 years. I'm good on stage. I can make people laugh, but at this point, I want to kind of evolve my material to make it even more personal to where I can, I'm like a storyteller. That's the brand that I have. I'm not really a setup punchline type of guy. I'm more like a storyteller where I tell a story and it has 4, 5, 6 different punchlines, maybe some callbacks. And that's the kind of guy, or that's the kind of comedian that I am. And that's how I evolved. I started off as like a knock joke comic and this kind of thing, and you don't get depth when you do that. So you really have to peel back the layers, and even to talk about some of the trauma, the things you don't want to talk about it on stage, and that helps you evolve as a comedian.
Yeah, well, what's fascinating about that, and maybe that's why we have similar styles as far as how we choose to do it. I do a lot of public speaking, and public speaking in general is people are there to be what we call infotained, right? They want the information, but they want it funny. They want it to be engaging. They want it to be fun. And the biggest issue that a lot of speakers, and I imagine comics also try to do, is they almost give the wrong type of details in their communication. And when I'm saying that, what I mean is sometimes you can give too many facts and not enough of the experience. Facts are almost never duplicatable, which means if you're in a room of 100 people and you're talking about facts, 99% of those people haven't experienced the same factual experience that you've experienced as far as what was factually around, how things were situated, organized. But what almost everybody's experienced is how you internally, emotionally experienced it. So it's about experiencing it to the life. So one of the things you brought up even in this podcast is, okay, have you ever been to New York? Yes. Okay. Well, have you ever been to a big city? The energy in which Albany, where people are nice, versus the energy of New York City is completely different energy. So you're bringing in the experience of, okay, I've never worked at Best Buy. That doesn't matter. Have I gone from a very friendly experience interaction to a harsh experience interaction? That's something that everybody can relate with. And so taking the facts out of it, you can still share the facts, but the focus is not on Best Buy. The focus is on the experience of, man, I went from this time place to a harsh place. And that goes back into another one of your stories that is just funny we have in common. I worked at Pizza Hut, not any other pizzeria, but I got hired as well as a waiter. And I was like, okay, this will be easy. As a waiter, I'm going to go wait tables. Yeah, little did I know that I was the floor cleaner, the dishwasher, the food prepper, the maintenance man, and supposed to be waiting tables all at the same time. And I was like, this sucks. I made it longer than you, though. I have to admit, I made it 2 months before I was like, yeah, this is.
Let me say something. I just knew something was up because I'm like, at the end of every night, it'd just be me and the manager. And I'm like, if there was one other person here, fine. He can scrub the floor. I can do this. But it was always just me. And then he had me scrubbing behind the fridge. And I'm like, why do you have me moving the fridge to scrub behind it? No one's coming back here to check behind you don't need to clean behind your fridge. It didn't make sense. So I was like, no, I'm out. I'm done. I'm done.
Funny. Well, hey, we're up on our time here, but if somebody wanted to, see you on TV, then sounds like Power is the best show to go watch to see that on multiple occasions, but maybe you snag him on some background stuff. Go check his IMDb and maybe you see him there. But two, where do people engage with you if they wanted to hear more of you? Do you have a podcast, website? Like, where's the best place to engage with you?
Yeah, so I have all of those things, folks. So if you want to see more of my work, I've done a couple of other things, but like Sam said, just go check out my IMDb. Go check out. I got a lot of things that I'm proud of that I've done in my career, and it's a very young career, and I got more coming. If you want to keep up with me, I have all the social media. Twitter, it's the Avery Mason. TikTok, it's Avery Mason Official. Instagram, Avery Mason Official. My website, Avery Mason Official. How'd you know? Avery Mason Official. And then my podcast, I started a podcast with a good friend of mine. He's also a comedian. His name is Phil Hunt. And we started it during COVID as a way to just kind of keep in touch and, keep the juices flowing during the shutdown. Because, there was no comedy. There was nothing here in New York. It was dry. So we did it every week. And then when the restrictions and all that stuff lifted and kind of COVID went away, we kept doing it. And now it's become this podcast called I Don't Know. And it's just two comedians' takes on life, pop culture, and sports. Some of the things that are most important to me and my buddy Phil. And we just kind of look at it. We kind of point a finger. We laugh. We also do advice time where we kind of answer advice questions that people send in. Semi-serious. We make jokes about it, but we're also semi-serious with some of it. But these questions aren't super deep. Like some of the questions are like, oh, my mother-in-law wants to wear white at my wedding. Should I invite her? So we do fashion stuff. I mean, not really fashion because none of us know how to dress really, but we just kind of roast. And then
you're going to tell them to show up in some Puff Daddy puff coat.
Puff coat, get your swimming goggles up here to the side, get your do-rag tied, you know what I'm saying? Put your Timbs on, roll one pant leg up, stuff it into a colorful sock. You know what I'm saying? Just walk up. Do what makes you happy, basically. Dude, if you're still wearing colorful socks, more power to you, man. Do what makes you happy. That's all I'll tell you. You in life, and anyways, listen, you're much happier when you're doing what makes you happy. As long as you ain't hurt nobody, whatever.
Amen to that, brother. Hey, well, yeah. Absolutely. Go check him out on Avery Mason. I want to leave this show with just 3 key questions that I got out of this. I hope you guys really consider and think about. So first question that I got out of this is, what does your future look like here? If you keep doing what you're doing, if you keep going down the same path that you're going down, what does your future look like? Look around. Find the people who are 10, 15, 20, 30 years ahead of where you're at and identify, is that the future that I want? Yeah, you're going to be making more money, but inflation is going to basically equalize that to where that's the lifestyle. When you're 30 years ahead of you, if you're 25, when you're 55, if you look at a 55-year-old like, dang, I want that life, keep doing what you're doing. If you're looking at that 55-year-old in the same industry doing the same thing you're doing, and it does not look like anything you want, make the change now. Don't wait till you're 55. Make the change now. So that's the first one. What does my future really look like if I stay doing what I'm doing? The second question, what or who do I really want to be? Ask yourself that question. Who inside of yourself? Not what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? What type of person? What type of father? What type of husband or mother, wife, daughter, whatever it is, whatever your role in life is, identify what is it you want to be? Who do you want to be for your community? Who do you want to be for your church? Identify who you want to be. And if you can actually write down a mission statement, you're going to get so much farther in life just identifying who do you really want to be. And then the third question, do I have to accept the labels that other people put on me? Okay, just ask yourself that. Do I have to accept this? I think if you ask yourself that question and you come to an answer, I think I know what answer you're going to come to if you're honest with yourself. It's so liberating to know the answer to that question. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that question for me. I feel like Avery kind of told you the answer for him. But the point is, ask yourself that question. Do you have to accept the labels that other people put on you? And once you get that answer, man, life changes.
Yeah, I had once there, are you being honest with yourself? This is one of the main things. You have to be honest with yourself. I was honest with myself when I said, dude, I don't want to do this job anymore. I'd be lying. Like if I sat there and said, I could fake it for another when I left that job at Uno's, I knew I did not want to be there. And I was honest. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not happy doing this. I don't like it. And that first check I got was only $15. And I was like, honestly, yeah, I'm not coming back here. Out. But be honest. Are you being honest with yourself? Do not lie to yourself. You only do yourself a disservice. Are you being honest with yourself?
Yep, that's huge. And I appreciate you so much, Avery. I do want to just give a quick shout out before we go. Avery did this whole podcast in his car while his wife is getting their checkup for their baby. So that's awesome. So excited for you guys. Having babies is the best thing ever, and also probably one of the most stressful things ever. But
yes,
it's good. It's good.
15 hours of no sleep over the last week. I've only had 15 hours of sleep over the last 7 days. I'm up. To save my life.
Hey, well, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.